Welcome to the museum at FIT's Fashion Culture Online. My name is Tania Melendez Escalante, and I am Senior Curator of Education. It is our pleasure to present Ronald van der Kemp and Lauren Fay in conversation. During this event, they will discuss van der Kemp's career and his devotion to craftsmanship, upcycling, and reducing waste in fashion. Ronald van der Kemp is a Dutch fashion designer and founder of demi-couture fashion house RVDK, his namesake label, which shows at Paris Couture Week and uses exclusive upcycled fabric. Lauren Fay has spent her career committed to improving sustainability, transparency, and accountability in the fashion industry. The New Fashion Initiative was born out of her need to create a more collaborative and interdisciplinary approach to fashion and bring together brands, nonprofits, and academics to educate fashion industry leaders. Enjoy the show.
Hi, Ronald. How are you?
I'm very good. Very happy to be here in a very
Yeah.
different way than we thought it was going to be, but still.
Yes. I know, and it's certainly been a long time since I've seen you, so it's good to at least see you virtually.
Yeah.
You look good.
Thank you. You too.
So, all right. So I wanted to start in with a little bit of background on your your history and your career in the arts and in fashion. So I'd love for you to give just a little bit of a summary of kind of your background up to this point and how you are now running RVDK, excuse me.
Well, I was born in Holland and I studied to become a ballet dancer, but that never happened. And I turned to fashion. I was always doing stuff, knitting, even making clothes, and one thing led to another. So I became a fashion designer. I went to art school here, the Rietveld Academy of Art. And after graduation, I went to New York and I worked for Bill Blass. I worked for Barney's New York. Then I went to Paris and I worked for Guy Laroche. Then I started consulting for various brands. And at one point, not at one point, but after working for, I think, like almost 25 years in this industry, always in the luxury business, I saw that the luxury business was sort of like copying what fast fashion was doing in terms of producing more and more clothes with less and less love. And I saw these enormous leftovers, fabrics and clothes and everything. And I thought, what's going on with this world? I want to do something good and something that, is real and something that talks about fashion with a passion and fashion with a soul. Mm-hmm. And so I started my brand RVDK, I think about 6 years ago now. Mm-hmm. And I think literally 6 years ago. I didn't really plan on building a brand, but I just wanted to do a project for myself to find out, to get my love for fashion and my passion back, and to really react on what was going on. I felt that the whole fashion industry was spinning out of control, and I wanted to do something really worthwhile for myself, really, in the first place. So I started working with things that I'd collected over the years, pieces of fabric and pieces of leather and like buttons and all this stuff that I loved. And I started making clothes just with what I had around me. And I went to Paris, I think 4 or 5 months after that, with a rack of clothes. Mm-hmm. They didn't make sense together. Like it was just like, a wardrobe of sort of like eccentric pieces. And I went there during couture, and I invited a few editors with the help of a great PR agency in Paris And we invited only, I think, like 15 people, and 10 of them came, and they all really liked what I was doing. And yeah, then one thing led to another. So here I am with my my brand RVDK.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's so, that just makes so much sense that your experience informed what you're doing now. I mean, you had firsthand experience seeing all of the waste. And that's a really interesting point to talk about how the speed just is, it increased across all the levels of fashion. So everything from your, fast fashion just started dominating,
Yeah.
even that, that high echelon that's seen as so focused on craft. But
Yeah,
so
and
great.
I think it was very important that I really experienced it all, that I really saw it all, that I really saw the industry change in those 25 years. So for me, it is very much something that I really feel, and it's in my own DNA and in my brand's DNA. But I know what it was like, and I know what happened, and I know where it went wrong, and I know, and I mean, I was right into it. I mean, I saw it. I even did many things that were wrong because I was participating in this industry, and I still see it now, with the whole fashion industry, where it goes wrong and how difficult it is to change things and everything. So I think, why people sort of listened to me from the beginning, not everyone, but a few people and good people, and looked at what I was doing, because, it really came from an experience, from seeing it firsthand, and from feeling it, and from knowing it from the inside. I think that really helps, because a lot of people now talk about all these things, but it's only talk, or it's only like a, sort of like a cloud that they make, but I don't think they feel the urge like I feel it.
Right.
So
Yeah, I mean, I think you're uniquely inside, being the designer and the and also the maker, being that you, with that first collection, did, you do a lot of the production work yourself. I mean, um I've seen your studio, and I know you're very hands-on with the all the collections that you produce.
yeah,
So
we do everything locally, which is very important. So everything is done in the area in Holland, but with great artisans, and everybody has their own speciality. But I'm very hands-on with. I'm not a great technician, on the contrary. But you know, I know I know all the techniques because I've experienced. I've done
right.
so many things, from tailoring to evening to even lingerie and forming wear and everything. So I can I know what to do, and I know how to to work with people to get the right things. Yeah, but
Right.
yeah,
Right, the architect.
yeah,
Um, so then that's before. So it's interesting to think of it as what's now, it's called upcycling in a in a broader sense. But what was, take us to that first showing, that first meeting, and what kinds of, I'm curious what kinds of questions you got about your process, about that
yeah.
collection. What were
Well, the
some of the
word
questions?
upcycling didn't really exist at that point. It's a word that I don't know that came later, that people invented afterwards. But what I did, for example, I um, I worked with someone who did hand weaving, and he had clothes from his parents that had both died, very sadly. But I mean, so there was all these clothes, and instead of throwing them away, we ripped them apart into threads, and from the threads, we started weaving new clothes. So we had jackets made out of his parents' clothes, and they were really beautiful. So everybody was like, "Wow, what is this?" And it's really interesting and everything. So that's a story in itself. So I think every garment had a story. I mean, I made this beautiful lace skirt that was made out of like stoles, lace stoles from the early 20th century. So, really antique stoles that usually people were questioning, like, how did you get that fabric? Like, it's so elaborate, but they didn't realize they were, handmade stoles that I found on an antique market. So there was all these different things, but I invited quite different people. For example, I invited the then the fashion director that I used to work with at Barney's, and she came to look at it, and I invited this lady that was the buyer for Colette in Paris. You know, they're very avant-garde stores.
Right.
And both of them said to me, I don't know what you're doing, but this is never going to work. Because how are you going to get this done? And nothing goes together. There's no story. You have like an evening dress and you have like a ripped pair of jeans made out of old jeans. What is this? They really didn't get it. So it was really funny because you would think they would be the first people to get it, but they really didn't believe in it. And then, you know, I had editors, like, for example, Emmanuel Alt from French Vogue, the fashion director.
Yep.
And she immediately was excited. She's like, God, this is so, you know, it feels real and it feels, you know, like genuine. And, you know, so I had, you know, the fashion press really loved it. Not all of them, but most of them. And they were very supportive as well because they saw I was onto something. And yeah, from that moment on, things started happening. And then yeah, but with the stores, they thought it was difficult, and you know, like they didn't really get it. Like they're so used to get like you know, a merchandise collection with a theme and like with colors and everything goes together, and you know, they can easily order. It's almost like done for them. This is the problem with the fashion world. Everything is so like cookie cutter, formulaic. This is what I was doing as well when I was working for big companies. I mean, you know, when you work for a big company, you know, you need to have like a structure. And if you do 6 or 8 collections a year, you know, you cannot dilly-dally around. You have to like have a theme, and the whole your team needs to know exactly where they need to go, what colors they need to use, what are the inspirations, and even the merchandisers are already like thinking about how the store display is going to be.
Right.
So for me, this ruined the whole idea of, you know, being creative and being innovative in fashion. You know, if you work like that, you know, you limit yourself from the beginning. And I think you see that now in world fashion. You see it at a fashion show. Like everything is like so programmed and so thought through. And I don't know, it sort of ruins the realness of fashion. And I think by working with these limitations of just working with what I had around me, it gave me more push to be creative. And I think, yeah, it's an interesting way of working. And I mean, I'm glad to see now that a lot of people take over that same concept. I see a lot of like, you know, younger designers or even brands that weren't doing it like working in my way as well now. So I see that it has a lot of impact. And well, I think that's a very good sign. Yeah.
Yeah, that actually, so that my next question was the one thing, and you've sort of answered it, but I'm going to flesh it out just a little bit more. If you could change one thing about the fashion industry, what would that be?
Well, there's a lot I would change.
Yeah,
First
one
of
is
all,
maybe.
I think all these mega companies, they're way too big. And the problem is, you know it, when you have a very big company with a lot of shareholders and people that need to get things out of it, I mean, it's very hard to change anything because there's all these demands and questions, and there's all these people involved, and everything you do, every small change is for them huge, you know? So, and you see that. So they try to change things on the surface, and then, you know, hopefully they're also trying to change, you know, everything behind it, but you don't see that yet. So I think, I mean, we see now that a lot of people, you know, are going now to 2 seasons a year instead of 6. I mean, that at least they claim, they say that now. It's something that I've, you know, been doing for those from since I started. I thought two connections is enough. We don't need more, you know, like why? So you see that happening. You see people thinking about where they get their fabrics from, and like, you know, there is a lot of things happening. There's also a lot of talk, and you know, I'm sort of like not so crazy about all these fashion shows that are sort of like carbon free, but then, you know, the production still goes up and up and up. And I think like, what are you trying to say here? You know, do something real. do not something that people talk about that seems like you're doing something, but no greenwashing, but be real. And this is the thing. I think in general, the fashion world has a problem with being real. Like, I mean, if you have a huge decor and you show your clothes and it's all about the celebrities that sit front row and about the decor and about where the people were traveling to see your show, then it's no longer about the clothes. I think it should be about the clothes, and it should be about, your story, but in a way that you're reacting to the world around you, and that you give your point of view. I mean, this was fashion was always about, like trying to pick up what's in the air and offer something new. And and I think if you see now that the whole world is going down in all levels, I mean, we all need to change. And I think as a fashion company, we have the responsibility to change, to really change, and to make changes, and to make people believe that change is necessary. And fashion is not like a disposable product, but that it's something that you need to collect, and that needs to fit to your personality, and that you need to save for, and that something that you cherish forever, ideally.
Right.
And I think we have a responsibility to make people think differently. But the problem is that all these big companies, I think they all want to go back to how it was as soon as possible. And I think this is the moment to make a change, and this is also the moment to where people listen and where people are ready for change, I think.
No, I definitely agree. I think there's a unique opportunity post-COVID, just with people having all been impacted in many different ways. And yeah, I mean, one thing that I've been tracking, particularly with the big companies, is looking at, these large claims, even if it's carbon neutral in the more traditional sort of CSR, measurements. So, solar and things like that for the bigger companies. I mean, those are certainly commendable and those are important, but you've got to look at who are they hiring. If they're hiring a bunch of marketing people and then they have a team of maybe 2 people for CSR, it's like having one person in governance who's looking over how many thousands of factories. There's no sort of proof, or there's no investment really in what they say that they're caring about. They're really putting all the money in the marketing. So
yeah. And I also see it myself, because I think since the moment I started, I've been trying to, my ideal is that I work with all these big companies, bigger or smaller, whatever, and find creative solutions for their stock left over, or for their clothes left over, or repurpose their clothes, or do something, but be creative about it and do something positive. This is what I've been trying to do. Right. I don't get anywhere with all these companies. Whatever I try, they don't want to listen to me. I mean, I don't know what it is. Or you have all these summits. You have the Copenhagen Fashion Summit about sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not there. Whatever I've tried to talk about the things that I believe in, I'm not invited. And these are the kind of things that I think, like, well, there is, sometimes it feels like you're working in the pharmaceutical industry, where there's so many people, you don't know where it goes wrong, and it's weird to be right in it, and to really feel that you cannot do what you want to do because there's bigger forces than you.
At play. Yeah. Well, I mean, to your point, I do think a lot of the hope is in the future, or in the younger generations. I have my moments too, doing, the nonprofit work that I do. And I think, I mean, we have this timeline, this really acute climate crisis, right? So we want it to happen faster, but it is a challenge of these people who are in power. Really, there's no other way to say it, that have the money. Are they really going to make the change, or do we need the new CEO, the new, COO, those roles to be switched out and change the people at the helm to make the changes. But
and I think more importantly is that the younger generation, the students from now, hello guys, you know, that they get the chance to do something original. The problem is when you're at a college or when you're studying art or whatever, and you want to become a fashion designer, you know, you end up like thinking, oh, I want to work for like one of the big companies because, you know, then you're going to make money and you have a good career and everything. But the moment you get in that circle, you're gone, you're lost, you know, like you have to work the way they say you have to work and you cannot, you know, reinvent the whole fashion cycle. The other thing is like if you want to be famous and you're a very, very talented designer, you apply to win one of the big prizes. One of the big prizes tell you, you have to work like this, you have to work like that, you have to, you know, this is the system, and, you know, they get into the system. And I feel like, you know, we should, as teachers, I mean, I sometimes do workshops as well, I think we should train the people to be themselves and to be totally original and forget about the current industry and what is expected from them. I think, yeah, they have to know, but don't train them to be, you know, like everyone else is now. And I find that with the young generation of designers that I would expect to see much more like real innovation and real, you know, weird stuff that we now think is not usable, but that in the future turns out to be the solution to all our problems, you know?
Right.
I mean, we're all looking for new ways. And I also think we have to think of the fashion industry as something different than just producing clothes and products. I mean, this is my question that I've been asking for years now. Is there something else we can do? I mean, we can offer experiences, but because that's when you get to something new, something that's not necessarily, you know, polluting the earth or adding to the overconsumption or to the overproduction. I mean, think of something else as a fashion company, you know, let it be, maybe it's, I don't know what it is, but, you know, you see virtual things, but think a little bit further. I mean, you know, you're selling a dream, so what else can we think of? And I think that's also where, you know, an answer could be, but I see that not enough. I mean, I don't see enough from the new generation ideas like that. I mean, when I talk to students in my workshops and I say these kind of things like I say now, I see blank faces and they're all like, what's he going on about? It's like, I find it so obvious that this is where we need to go, but it seems, you know, I think
oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's also, you know, it's great to see. I mean, I'm familiar with a number of the different programs in the US, a little bit less the ones in Europe, but the design schools, you know, really are looking to change the way that they're teaching, which is another key component, I think, to giving the students, as you're saying, kind of a different, less restrictive framework, more interdisciplinary ways of thinking, more ways of, you know, maybe just not thinking in a production clothing design way, like looking at different approaches. So whether that's 3D or AI or music or, you know, different blends of all those things. And
so
also,
you see that happening?
I see it starting to happen. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, okay.
And I think that it's, you know, it's one of those things that is a little bit, a little chicken and egg. So the students do need to, I think, bring that demand to the schools also, because, you know, fashion schools are a business and they're running, you know, they've got employees and their whole, you know, organization to support. So they are looking to also represent certain things in the industry. It's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of points of entry for change. There's a lot of ways to try to change it, but I definitely see some people who are pushing for it. So that's, you know, that's exciting.
That's good. Yeah.
What were you going to say to the, I was actually going to extrapolate a little bit on what you were saying and ask, so what advice would you then give to students these days? If you could give.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's hard to give advice, but I mean, all I can say is that stick to what you believe and stick to your guns and don't listen too much, because I think also that when I first started my RVDK, I mean, I had advice. I mean, some of the people that I told you about, advised me, no, you should do this and you should concentrate and you should pick your battle and you should do that. And, all this advice is from people that are really, respected in the industry and that you would normally listen to. And I listened to them, but I didn't feel it. So I thought, and every time I went back to no, but what do I really want? That's so important that you feel yourself. And it's still difficult for me. I mean, I get sidetracked all the time. I mean, we ended up doing wholesale. From the beginning, I didn't really believe in wholesale, but I ended up doing it because, whatever you got great contacts, you got people wanting to, like, we worked with Net-a-Porter, we worked with Bergdorf Goodman, it's all these prestigious stores.
Right.
But I never really felt it. And I always felt like it's not really right. And last year we stopped with everything, with wholesale.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was the best decision also because you see now wholesale is sort of like going down. I mean, a lot of the retails have problems, and we're also looking to find a new way of retailing. This is also in the air. So, I mean, it was a decision I made like last year. And of course, it wasn't the easiest decision because how are you going to replace the income, But I think in retrospect, this is a good decision because I think we would have probably been, I don't know, not in a very good situation now because of all the stores not accepting the goods that you had produced or, like this kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
So I think it's very important to listen to your own heart and yeah, okay, you have teachers and you have telling, all these people telling you what to do, like I'm doing now, but listen to yourself. You only know best, and you have to be original. It's no point in copying someone else. I mean, you're not going to get anywhere then. You have to know who you are and what you stand for, because then you can really fight for it. I mean, I fight for what I do because I really believe in it. I have no, it is what I never question anything that I do. So if people tell me I'm doing the wrong thing, I'm thinking, no, I'm not. I know it's the right thing because I really feel it. And this, I think, very important.
Right.
Really know who you are. Yeah.
Right. No, that's great advice. I mean, that's independent thought and sticking to your guns. I think that's really maybe the only thing that people can tell other people, because, it's always, advice is always through other people's life experience and their own, their perspective, and it doesn't apply necessarily.
And I think, one example where I thought like, oh, can I do this? It's like in the middle of the whole COVID pandemic, we did this thing here in a hotel. I wanted to do something positive, and not one of the fashion companies, no one was doing anything. And I said, I want to do something positive because I feel like people are now listening and are, so why don't we try and give him a dream? And we did give him a dream. We made, couture masks matching to couture dresses that we had. Mm-hmm. And, we presented it in the middle of COVID and, like in a beautiful hotel with 30 girls, each had their own room. And, so it was all thought through within all the restriction of what was possible. Right. But it was very risky because, I also heard a lot of people like, oh, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. And people were scared and it's going to be canceled and the police is going to come and, no one is waiting for this. And you're doing something, extravagant in this time where there's so many people dying. And yeah, you can look at it in so many different ways, but I really believed, I mean, it was done with a pure conscience and with an idea of I really felt that I had to do something and also wake up the fashion industry, with a language that the fashion industry understands, by doing something like, it was almost like a fashion show. It wasn't, but that's how people looked at it. Mm-hmm. But, it woke up so many people and, I reached the whole world with this thing and it got people to talk about it again. And also it got people to talk about face masks and, I try to bring these subjects in a positive way and also in a way that is constructive for what we're going to do after the pandemic. But if I had listened to all the people telling me, oh, don't do this and be careful and watch out, and I wouldn't have done anything, Mm-hmm. So again, I was just following my instincts, and I think that's the best the best advice I can give you. Follow your instincts.
Not too much analysis paralysis, right?
No, that's true. Yeah.
And so and then you also at the end, you had an auction of those, right? Of the masks themselves?
Yeah, we auctioned them for the refugee company, which is a company that works with refugees here and try to build a life for them. So yeah, we did an auction with Christie's like that was 3 weeks ago, where we had we had 30 masks and we auctioned them, and it was really great. It was a really beautiful event, and it was also very great that you know, like a renowned fashion house like or auction house like Christie's wanted to support this. So it was a beautiful thing, I think. Yeah.
That's great.
And again, I mean, the event of the auction also went over the whole world. So people, you know, we talked about refugees, we talked about COVID, we talked about, you know, the fashion industry. So again, you reach so many people by doing something very positive. I mean, it was like a win-win situation.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm hopeful. I think that actually leads me to my last question, which is around COVID. A little bit about what you think kind of the opportunities are around this. I mean, you've spoken to some of these themes that there is. I would agree that I think a lot of people are taking this time in this sort of, you know, really forced pause that a lot of people have, and it's causing them to see shared humanity. I mean, certainly in the US, we've got longstanding issues around Black Lives Matter. I mean, the fact that actually needs to exist as a movement is just, you know, on one level really upsetting. It should be a given that Black Lives Matter, that, you know, that there should be more equality in this country, but that's a different conversation. But I also think that, you know,
really, it's part of the whole, I think it's part of this period of I call it, it's a period of mindfulness.
Yeah.
And well, not everyone is in this. I mean, you see the opposite as well. But I think a lot of people are really, you know, looking at their lives and looking what's around them, and with more attention, and also looking at the other people. And I think we also realize that we all have to do this together. I mean, we cannot change. I mean, this COVID is a problem all across the world. You know, like it's not only one little country, but we all have to do it together. So this is something new, you know. And I think if you think about it, we have to do everything together in this world. I mean, you know, if we want to make a change. And I think also, you know, everybody, it's so great to do it all together, all these different cultures, all these different ideas, and all these different people. I mean, it makes it very strong. I mean, you know.
Right.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's people who think very differently, but I also see that there's a lot of people who are really convinced of, you know, that we have to include everyone to solve this problem. And you know, I think, I mean, I saw it myself. When you're sitting at home, you don't see many people. You know, you have time to reflect, and you don't get bombarded with all this stuff the whole time, but you have time to be more mindful. And I think it's very healthy. I mean, it's a horrible time, but it's also, you also have to see the positive things of it. I think if you turn it into something positive, it's just like a time where, you know, we can change, and we can think about how we want to be better, and how we want to be better with one another, and with for the planet we live on, and for the people that are living on this planet. So it's like, you know, it's a given. And I think it's, if you really think about that, and how you can do it yourself in your own little way. I mean, I'm not a doctor, and I wouldn't be good helping sick people.
Right.
And I also wouldn't be good making, because everybody kept asking me, why aren't you making face masks for all the people in the hospital? Why aren't you making, you know, the gowns for people in the hospital? And I thought, like, that's not what I'm good at, you know? It's like, I mean, I'm not fast fashion. So I try to think of something else. And by making these couture masks, you know, I got a conversation, you know, about the fashion industry, but also I try to help now, you know, the refugee company. So it's a different way of working. I mean, think you have to find your own way of how you can contribute to a better world, no?
Right. Yeah. And using your, the privileges and contacts and whatever sort of sphere you have, whatever anyone individually can do, which I think that is what you saw with people, with the marches and some of the things that were happening in the US that hopefully are continuing to happen through November for some change over here. That is, it's, but I agree with you. I think that it clears for a lot of people. One of the, silver linings can be that it clears out maybe some of this congestion of, just distraction and focus really on what it is that you care about. And I think that it's, I think that the way that there's always a place for art in whatever, whatever kind of trials and, challenges we go through in life. And I think that, sharing beauty and inspiration is something that just makes people feel positive. It spreads hope. It does, it does a lot of positive things.
And to come back to your diversity subject, I always looked at Saint Laurent when he did his shows.
Mm-hmm.
You had girls from all over the world.
Yeah.
And they were always, and everybody had their moment. And this is what I've always, I didn't even question. I never understood these shows where you had like 30 of the same clones coming out.
Right.
Looking like there was no personality left.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, the true spirit, and that's when you go to like a Saint Laurent or something, true spirit of
or Halston had
it was diverse. It made it, it was like everyone was represented.
Mm-hmm.
And that made it so beautiful. And you had all these strong personalities. And I think it's logic that we think that way. I find it almost impossible not to think that way. So I'm so shocked that all these fashion companies did think that way. And now you see, nowadays you see a big change. You see it, and now it's sometimes you feel like, oh, like it's almost overreacting on the subject. But and the funny thing is like I've always also used, like sometimes I've used a guy that in a show that wears women's clothes, and I've been doing that for 4 or 5 years. Nobody ever said anything about it, and now people said, oh, he did a gender fluid show. I didn't do a gender fluid show. That's what I've always done. It's it is it's not like that I purposely did that. It's just it was part of the story, because this is why the world is so interesting with all these different characters, and people should think about it that way. All these different people make the world go around. You get inspiration from all these interesting, eccentric people, and I think that it's very important right now that we're, I'm glad that people are opening up a little bit more now, and that we're correcting this deficit in inclusion. So I think it's hopefully it's going to change now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I want to be, I think the best way to be is hopeful about it, because there are a lot of, it's been tough for everybody, in the world for a lot of different reasons. And it's a unique opportunity for there to really be a restart. So, and certainly that can start with young, with the young folks over here voting, and with the young folks changing their perspective on what it means to be a fashion designer, and then folks like us still continuing to push in our way as well. So wonderful. All right, well
let's all stay positive and creative and beautiful, and I think we also have to, because a lot of people said like, it's too, you cannot do fashion right now, it's not appropriate or something. I think it is appropriate. This is what makes people happy and makes people dream, but make something that does actually make people dream. That's, I think, the biggest message.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. Wonderful to talk with you.
Listening.
Definitely. All right, and stay safe over there in Holland.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see your next work.
So, well, I'm curious to see what I'm going to do myself. Right after this, I'll start kicking on it. All right.
All right.
Okay.